Today on Locked On Canadiens, we take a victory lap with one Lane Hutson as he celebrates his Calder Trophy win.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into episode 1328 of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, Locked On Canadiens is your team every day. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as That Maybe It's Ian, and I am joined, as I always am, by Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick. Laura, we have hardware to discuss today. The first, really, of this core of the team, and hopefully first of many for the Montreal Canadiens. That was a nice little surprise on a Tuesday, huh?
It was. We've been waiting for it for a week and a half now since they started rolling these out. I was a little bit worried that they would wait until the very end of all of these award presentations. But it's not unexpected. But I did see some people all over the socials be a little bit nervous about this outcome. And then it turned out that it was a landslide. It was almost unanimous. Lane Hutson, the most deserving Calder nominee of this year.
Yeah, and we'll get into that because it wasn't close, and I think it's interesting to look into why that was. We'll dedicate practically the rest of the show to trade rumors, real and made up. We have another entry into the Nick Hague file, and additionally, maybe a second line center or just top six forward in general. And then we're going to go over some of your trade proposals. We got sent a couple over the last day or so, and we want to crack into those and just have a good time, either saying that would be really fun, or I think you should go back to the drawing board with this one and maybe take another shot at it. But let's start with Lane Hutson. He gets 165 out of 191 first-placed votes. No ballots had him any lower than second. He was either first or second on every ballot. It was dominant. In a way that I don't think I was expecting. And I think I was expecting Macklin Celebrini to finish second, and he didn't. He finished third. I think the late push from Dustin Wolf and almost getting the Calgary Flames into the playoffs was enough to push him into second. But I was still kind of shocked that the body of work that Celebrini had put together to that point didn't get him there. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about Lane Hutson. He's the seventh Montreal Canadien to win the Calder Trophy, the first since Ken Dryden. The Canadiens put out a really great video of Ken Dryden speaking. I want to run through a wall after listening to that guy talk. You're nodding your head. You're the same way, right? Like listening to Ken Dryden is just incredible.
I once went to a talk by Ken Dryden, and then we met him afterwards. This man has a presence. He's also twice as tall as I am. There's a picture of me and my friends with him. My friends are all normal height. I'm tiny. And he's just, the way he speaks is just so incredible. And he's done so much in his life. He's waited on so much, but there's something special about when he comes back to talk about hockey. There's something really romantic and really, emotional about it, I find.
Yeah. And I think Dryden was shocked to realize he was the last Montreal Canadien to win the Calder Trophy, and that was over 50 years ago. Yeah, the list of Calder winners for the Canadiens, obviously Dryden, who went to the Hall of Fame and is a 6-time Cup winner. Laperriere, who's a Hall of Famer and a 5-time Cup winner. Russo, who's a 4-time Cup winner. Backstrom is a 6-time Cup winner. Jeff Friant, Hall of Famer and 6-time Cup winner. And then Johnny Quilty, who did none of those things. But he did win the Calder. He had a very short NHL career, a great rookie campaign, and then didn't have much after that. So 3 in the Hall of Fame, 5 of 6 of them have cups, and they have a lot of cups. It's 4, 5, and 6 cups among them. It's fun to put all of those into perspective, or to just sort of group Lane Hutson into that conversation. I think we need to, I say all of that, but I think a lot of people will read into that and go, so he's going to do all of that. It's a much different NHL now than it was back when those guys were winning handfuls of cups at a time. I want to talk about the near unanimous aspect of this, because I saw some people say it should have been unanimous. I find that I disagree with that. And it's not to say that I think Lane Hutson didn't deserve every first place vote he got. I just find that unanimous votes kind of tend to like lend themselves to an echo chamber within the sport instead of like legitimately good ideas. Any one of those guys nominated had a legitimate case for that trophy. So I find like the people are saying like, oh, it should have been unanimous. And I thank goodness it wasn't close, because I didn't want people to be going through the ballot and being like, who didn't put Lane on in first place? We're going to go harass them. Don't be that guy. That's so lame. What did you think about that? Like that it was nearly unanimous, but not quite there. There was still some like respect for for the other players who were involved.
I think, I mean, some people did look at the ballot and there was a little bit of a geographical component to it. I think nobody saw the Calgary Flames more than the Calgary media. And then the second most people who saw the Calgary Flames were the Edmonton media. So, yes, there was a little bit of concentration in Alberta, but it wasn't as much as people said it was, right? And I think a lot of it is, too, the fact that the Canadiens did actually make the playoffs. That I think that might have influenced it. But I also think what's really, really important is that Lane Hutson played himself into the conversation. As you pointed out, he did not get national broadcasting in the US, right? He did get a lot in Canada, and that was fair. And there was a lot of sitting up and taking notice of him very early in the season, which is not what you usually get for Canadiens players, right? If somebody is about to make their mark, the national media in Canada doesn't start talking about it until like March, right? So there was definitely a lot of notice taken, but I think part of it too is with Macklin Celebrini, I think everybody expected him to be great. Whereas with Lane Hutson, there were still naysayers every moment. And so the fact that he shut that down, he shut up the naysayers, I think prompted people to be more likely to vote for him and to give him this. And which is not to discount what Macklin Celebrini is or what he has done in his first season. I also think Dustin Wolf kind of forced everybody's hand, because as early as Four Nations, people were still talking about Matvei Michkov being in that top three. And Dustin Wolf really, 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 took control of that narrative.
Yeah, Dustin Wolf's play, I mean, essentially took Matvei Michkov out of the running. And there's only three finalists. They're not nominees, they're finalists, because it's just the top three vote getters. We've kind of forced ourselves into the perspective of thinking, well, those are the nominees. Those are the only three they have to vote on. No, they get the full gamut of rookies to vote on. What does Hutson need to improve on as early as next season, right? Like, we know the offense is there. I'm not really worried about the offense going anywhere, even if it does take a slight step back next year. I'm not worried about that in the macro sense for this player, but what does he have to improve on in order for us to to continue to see the development of this player?
So let me ask you this. The other night we were talking about Lane Hutson and you said next step NORRIS or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Were you joking?
I don't think it's next year, but I don't think it's far away if he continues at the pace he's going, especially the way that guys vote for that trophy, right? They like to vote for the high scoring defenseman.
Right. So this is to say that this is a player we have a lot of faith in, as not just a point getter and an offensive, creative presence, right? Like we talked so much over the course of the season where he would take control of the game and change the whole course of it, right? I think he needs to improve his defensive ability, right? Nobody's expecting him to be on that back check a lot, even though he's fast enough to do it. His skating is very weird, but he can do it, right? He's smart enough, he's fast enough to cover for his mistakes, but he's not the first person that you think of. And I don't think he ever has to be. I just think you have to have more conversations about his defensive ability if we're going to say that this is something that he needs to build upon, improve upon, and make himself eligible for those NORRIS conversations. Because I too, like you, I didn't think it was a joke or an exaggeration. I really think that Lane Hutson will be in those conversations. He'll be in the running. He'll be getting some of the votes. I don't know what the balloting is going to look like, and I don't know if it's going to happen as soon as next year, right? Yeah. I think it's gonna take a couple of years. I think the Montreal Canadiens have to be a force to be reckoned with before that happens. But as soon as that happens, everyone's going to take notice, because you think about who else wins that kind of stuff. Look at the season the team has. That's when people take notice. So I think it's as much up to the Montreal Canadiens as it is up to Lane Hutson himself. But the two-way game needs to improve a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they haven't announced the NORRIS yet. I would love to see, and I don't even think it would be that much of a stretch for someone to throw a fifth place NORRIS vote Lane Hutson's way. we've seen weirder selections in those fourth and fifth place spots, because I think writers sort of feel like, well, that's not going to win them the trophy. I can kind of throw a guy I like in there and we'll be cool with it. I kind of wonder if that's what's on the menu for the rest of the week.
And do we think we have a name for somebody who would do that? Do we think it'll be a Montreal homer, or it'll be somebody like Craig Button or something?
Ooh, man, that's a good question. I don't want to single anybody out, but I think those are the clubhouse leaders for me. We're either seeing, a French paper associated with a writer next to their name, or we're seeing the president of Habs Nation West in Craig Button, putting through that vote. I wouldn't put it past him at all, to be honest with you. All right, we'll leave Lane Hutson there. We'll spend the rest of the summer celebrating and into next fall. Just already very excited to see this guy play hockey again. I miss watching Lane Hutson play hockey so much. Can't wait to do that again. But we're going to step aside. When we come back, I'll be wearing a different hat. We're going back into Rumor Roundup. We're talking about Nick Hague, and we're talking about potentially an NHL insider linking Montreal to looking for immediate second-line help. And we'll get into that in just a minute. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days, whether I'm at my desk or I'm on a road trip and I just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. I especially like the different varieties of no-shell pistachios, like sea salt and vinegar or chili roasted. And if you love cracking into every shell for that satisfying crunch, don't worry, I haven't forgotten about you. The in-shell options are always a classic favorite. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Oh, I forgot. I have to change my hat. Hold on. Man. We're getting sloppy here, Laura. We're back on Locked On Canadiens.
We're not. It was a very short change. It was very, very, very small amount of. This is not Saturday Night Live. You don't get like a full 50 seconds to do this.
Yeah, our hat budget is actually larger than SNL's though. So it's. I do want to put that out there that we're really pushing the boundaries of how much money people can spend on hats. All right, we're back with Rumor Roundup. I've got the hat on, which means we're about to talk about some stuff that some insiders are saying. Today's insider of note is one Elliot Friedman on his 32 Thoughts podcast. I want to preface this by saying I started going down this path after seeing a lot of the aggregators post that Elliot Friedman said the Canadiens are very much in on Nick Hague. And I expected the line to come from Elliot Friedman I expected it to be very Nick Hague focused. And it couldn't be further from the truth. So I've transcribed it. I'm going to read to you word for word what Elliot Friedman said on his podcast. Nick Hague has been linked to them, Montreal. I could see it absolutely, but I've heard a little bit about upgrading at forward too. So Montreal is another team that I've heard with that specifically, and I think some of that focus could be on who they envision playing with Demidov for a while. Is there somebody out there that they would look at and say, these are two people who could grow together a little bit? That was one half of a sentence about Nick Hague, and the rest of it about how he's hearing Montreal's looking for somebody to grow with Ivan Demidov on the second line.
It's like paragraphs.
I'm shocked at like that Nick Hague isn't even like, and all, he's probably going to end up being a Montreal Canadian just looking at the bend of history here. But like, God bless him, he's not the main story in what Elliot Friedman said on the podcast. I think everybody's just throwing that name around. And like the most interesting part about that to me was the fact that like Montreal is very much looking for a center that they can tie to Ivan Demidov for a while. Leaving out maybe an offer sheet. I think there's a lot of action going on right now that we'll have to wait until the cup final is over before things are decided on. But the one thing that I take from here is that, these are two people who could grow together a little bit. They want to find a forward they can stick to Demidov. What does that mean for a guy like Michael Hage, who Montreal envisions probably as a top 6 center when he's at the peak of his powers in Montreal? Like, they're obviously not giving up on that player, but it does
No.
seem they're making other plans in the meantime, right?
Yeah, they're not rushing that guy, right? And I think it's really interesting because I also think that this conversation is now happening. The grow together is happening because them making the playoffs accelerated the timeline a little bit. As much as they say that it's not and blah 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 and it's a track and it's a patience and all of that, I think they really weren't expecting the Canadians to be able to put together that second half of the season that they ended up doing, and I think that they really have faith that they can push them now. They can create a core now. What that says to me is that they're not tampering with Sidney Crosby, much to my dismay. My heartbreak. What that also says to me is that maybe all the people that keep talking about how they're going to offer Sheet Mason McTavish aren't completely out there. The reason that I continuously dismiss that idea is that why the hell would Anaheim allow that to happen? It doesn't make sense, right? Especially now that they're reportedly in on Mitch Marner. Who's going to play with Mitch Marner? You know? So I think that that's not the road they're going to go down. But if they're looking for somebody who can grow with Demidov, it is somebody that's probably an RFA that they're going to target.
I will say that I don't in that line, Elliot Friedman did not mention a center. He just said somebody to play with Demidov. He does go on to say Dvorak is a free agent, so you're looking at, just like everybody else, a second line center, but you're looking for a second line center to play with Demidov. Like, so he does recognize that, but in that first section, he doesn't mention center. And my mind goes to a guy like a Will Cooley out of New York. Like, he's not a center, but you could play him on the wing and find the center eventually. I think the one thing we have to come to terms with is the fact that, yes, Montreal might be willing to overpay for a center that is a really good fit for this team, but they're not going to overpay for just a center, full stop, right? They are not going to do that. And if they don't find that guy this summer, they're not panicking about it. They're not, firing picks and prospects out of a cannon for a guy who doesn't fit with what this team is trying to be. So I think I know it's important that they find that center, but it's more important that they find their center. They find the guy that will fit. And it's not just, I don't know, like Bergevin going and getting Christian Dvorak just because, like, crap, we lost our guy. We have to go get another one, right? Like, that's what that felt like the entire time. I will say he goes on to talk about Vegas, and he says he's not sure where William Karlsson's name keeps coming from. I know Montreal fans and some Montreal media are saying Montreal is in on this player and they want William Karlsson. It doesn't seem like the Knights are willing to move on from him. I know the quote that Friedman had was they really like the player, and Vegas usually they're totally fine just launching guys out of that team. So the fact that they're kind of having an emotional connection with this guy and not wanting to move on from him, tends to make me believe that that's not really an option.
But if it were an option, it would work so well in Montreal.
Yeah, 2 years left, under $6 million per year. It'd be a perfect fit. The things you would have to send Vegas's way would probably be prohibitive.
More than you want.
More than you want, and probably more than he's worth. Honestly, I mean, like, yeah, he's a good two-way center, but you're not. I think your offensive impact it's going to have to be Demidov driving on that line. So you start to wonder if that's worth it. If Vegas really wants to keep him, how much are you willing to overpay to make them want to keep him less? I just don't know that that's there's value in that. Let's just assign some. Let's do some yeehaws to everything we just talked about. Just like the scope of understanding of people, aggregating what Friedman had said and completely not missing the point, but I think missing the emphasis of what he was talking about. But let's start with entertainment. How fun was all of this?
I would say that it went from a, kind of a 3. It went to a 5 just based on how everyone was just, coming up with crazy things and making it fit that narrative.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think part of this being silly season is people like aggregators and fans and media kind of taking bits and pieces of things and trying to run with them. We're going to always do our best to make sure you get the full context here on Locked On Canadiens, because it bothers me to a great deal. However, I think, I don't know if I mentioned it on camera, but one of my goals in life is to be aggregated to the point where I get radioed and somebody completely messes up what I say. That's how you know you made it. They don't do that to nobodies, right? They do that to people. I think from a realism standpoint, just about everything in here was as realistic as possible. So that's 5 yeehaws for me. I don't think Elliot Friedman broke any new ground really, but he did lay the groundwork for what this summer is going to look like for the Canadiens.
Yes, correct. And I think it's absolutely reliable information based on the source.
Agreed. Speaking of sources, we have a bunch of unreliable ones coming up. It's you guys, it's our listeners who pitched us some fun trade proposals, and we'll break those down when we come back on Locked On Canadiens. All right, quick change was better. We nailed that one. That was good. All right, we're back. It is time to talk about your trade proposals. We asked you guys, and honestly, keep them coming. Keep firing these things in. As rumors come out, we'll get new versions of these, new players added to them. Lots of Vegas involved in this because Montreal, I think the Nick Hague of it all is very much, front and center in this. Let's start with a Roberts brother. Kyle Roberts writes to us, and he mentions his brother's names in there as well. And he lays out a summer plan that he describes as the inner machinations of a madman. So let's go into these deals. The first one is a trade with the New Jersey Devils. The New Jersey Devils acquire Kirby Dach, Joshua Waugh, Riley Kidney, and a 2025 second in exchange for Simon Nemec, the defenseman. Is that enough for Simon Nemec?
I guess it depends on if Simon Nemec is what we think he is, or if Simon Nemec is what New Jersey has seemed to think he is for the last couple of years. I think that they don't seem to be 100% sold on the player, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I think that they have serious doubts that that's an NHL player at this point because his name keeps coming up. They won't play him regularly in the NHL. I think that it's reasonable for people to look there and go, hey, what's going on? Like, why is this guy not taken off yet?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's not as insane as Kyle Roberts thinks it is, simply because New Jersey doesn't seem to like him all that much, right?
Yeah.
I do think though New Jersey wants a Jack Eye brother. I think New Jersey, every time New Jersey looks in this direction, they want a guy that does hits. They want a guy that does big thundering hits, whether it's Josh Anderson they're looking at, or Arbor Xhekaj they're looking at, or Arbor Xhekaj they're looking at again, or maybe this time they're looking at Florian Xhekaj. Maybe let's take another quick look at our Arbor Xhekaj. I feel like New Jersey will demand that because Riley Kidney does not fit that mold. Joshua Waugh does not fit that mold. They would be great players on the New Jersey Devils. I don't know if Riley Kidney is going to make the NHL, to be honest, but he does not fit. He does not fit New Jersey, right?
Yeah, you mentioned sending one of the Xhekaj brothers to New Jersey, and I just
we're not doing that.
We're not doing that because they would be great in New Jersey, and I think that bothers me a lot.
Yeah.
But also, after seeing how the Jonathan Kovacevic thing worked out, you should not be trading any more of your defensemen to the New Jersey Devils. Like, that should be off limits the rest of the way. Don't
cruel.
do that. Another one from Kyle Roberts. This one I really like. Utah acquires Alex Newhook, pick 16, pick 17, and pick 41 for the 4th overall pick. And Montreal walks up there and takes Caleb Desnoyers, 4th overall. I love this. I don't know that that's enough for Utah because I think a lot of people want to go up and pick 4th overall in Utah's spot. And I don't like if Utah were to make a splash there, I think they want a player. I don't think they want picks. I mean, they're getting a player in Alex Newhook, but I don't think that moves the needle for them all that much. No,
it doesn't make the splash.
No, it doesn't.
Splash.
If there's one move I want to see Montreal make at the draft, I'd love to see them move up to 4 and take that player. I've done very preliminary draft research, but this guy seems to have it. He's 6'2". It seems like a guy who could come in and play an offensive role and play the way Montreal wants to, which is more important than a lot of things when you're considering who to pick at the draft. You know, you need to fit the scheme of this team. So I really like that one. Last one from Kyle here was Anaheim acquires Carey Price's contract to put on long-term injured reserve, Logan Mailloux, Oliver Kapanen, a 2025 third, and a 2026 second in exchange for Trevor Zegras. I feel like this is the first one so far where maybe you're giving up too much for Trevor Zegras. Usually we see a lot of trade proposals for this player where it's like Anaheim's never going to go for that. And I don't even think Anaheim goes for this, but I think it's too much going the other way for Montreal personally.
I think Anaheim is eventually going to trade him, though. There's too much smoke there. There's too much smoke there. And that's another reason why I don't think Mason McTavish is available to the Montreal Canadiens to offer sheet and steal. Because Trevor Zegras is definitely, like, in my mind, like, next season, probably an Anaheim Duck. But after that, I don't know.
Yeah, I get big Matt Duchene vibes with Trevor Zegras. In that, like, the end of Matt Duchene in Colorado was just like every year, why is he still here? That I still think of him showing up to picture day and they make him take a picture as a Colorado Avalanche and he just looks like he hates his life. We're headed there with Trevor Zegras. I know we are. So yeah, I don't know. Those are, lots of fun. I enjoy doing this. Let's keep moving. Jay Schwarzer has a deal with Vegas. Vegas acquires Logan Mailloux, 2025 second, or at worst, if they say no to that, pick 17 in exchange for William Karlsson. I think we have to look at any of the William Karlsson trades or the Nick Hague trade for what it's worth and look at it through the lens of Vegas is trying to cut salary. This would achieve that. Is it enough for them to move on from this player? Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think that if William Karlsson is available, there's going to be a bidding war for his services. That's why I think he's truly not available, because Vegas would have put out a feeler to be like, hey, come get him, make me your best offer. And teams would have fallen over themselves to give up too much for him. The fact that they're sending out a no, stay away, like he's here, makes me really believe that this player is not going to get moved unless somebody shows up and offers, a ton of stuff that's like completely ridiculous for this player.
Yeah. It's either they're not giving him up or they're really trying to drive the price up.
Yeah. All right. Two more here. We have Simply Script on YouTube. They posted this with the title, I'm going to up the ante on Vegas. So here it is. Montreal acquires Nick Hague and Jack Eichel. Vegas acquires the next 3 Canadiens first round picks. So 25, 26, and 27, Jaden Struble and Alex Newhook. Your thoughts on not only getting Nick Hague and ending that saga, but getting Jack Eichel in the process?
I think Jack Eichel would command more.
Yeah, which is crazy which is crazy. You're giving up 3 first round picks, and I think that that's a wild deal. And Vegas probably still goes, nah, it's not enough.
No, it's not enough. Also, because we don't know where Montreal's going to finish. We know where they are in 2025, right? They could finish. They could go back to being a top 5 pick next year, or they could be picking in the 30s.
Yeah, I would be very worried about trading away a future first round pick at this stage of the Canadiens build.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe after next season, we're looking at it and going, this team's fine. We're never going to have to worry about them, in the bottom 5, barring everybody got hurt. Nobody played that season. I think
everyone died.
Yeah. Everyone got Kirby Doc Trenchfoot or something like that. Like that's sort of what I'm thinking of when I think of those. All right. Last one. This is a funny one. Mouse of the West asks, the American broadcast acquires Gary Galley and first choice on the menu at a Montreal deli, and the Canadian broadcast acquires PK Subban. Since we both are on different sides of this, Laura, you would be the Canadian broadcast. Myself, I watch a lot of the American broadcast. What are your thoughts on Gary Galley and the first choice of the menu at a Montreal deli? Meaning, I think that means
a smoked meat sandwich.
Right, a smoked meat. We get to say that it's American now. Is what I think this means, right?
Yeah.
And in exchange, you get PK Subban. What are your thoughts?
That I'm fleecing you.
1,000% we're getting fleeced.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I don't even really like PK on the broadcast. I think he's trying really hard to be a certain guy who used to wear very colorful suits in between the intermissions and yell and scream and pound his hands on the table. Get a lot of those vibes. Also, we get Gary Galley. That's not fair at all.
No.
The guy doesn't he's like me, doesn't stop talking. Like, that's not fair.
He's bad. I'm sorry. I hate talking about this, about talking like this about other people who talk for a living, because it's really hurtful when people do it to me. I don't think he adds value to a broadcast, and his job is specifically to be there to add value. And I find that it's just he has not evolved with the game. I say this about a lot of people. I say this about coaches. I say this about GMs. He has not evolved with the game. That is the Gary Galley issue. And I think with PK Subban, at the very least, you are being entertained, but I get what you mean in that it does not feel authentic. There's something about PK Subban that does not feel authentic. So
Yeah.
I guess it would make sense to take the first choice off of Montreal deli menu.
Yeah, maybe it's a wash between those two guys, and we get smoked meat here in the States. I think that would cause an international incident, though, so we'll leave that there. I will say, the PK thing, I remember watching an early ESPN broadcast. I think it was the first broadcast of the season this year, and they were in the first intermission, and he's losing his mind about how bad one team is playing. He's like, they got to wake up. They got to do that. And the other guy, Steve Levy, on the broadcast goes, PK, it's the first game of the season. Like, on the broadcast, he's like, you got to chill out, my guy. Like, that's sort of what you'd be getting in Canada. Imagine him on a Hockey Night in Canada broadcast would go so hard. It would be nuts.
Yeah.
But
it would
I
be
don't
really
know
funny.
I would imagine it happens before he ends his broadcasting career.
Career.
Yeah, let's hit our trivia and then head out of here. A lot of folks got this answer right today. So this was I love when I get to read a laundry list of names who got this right. So the question was, we were talking about some rumors involving one Mike Matheson. The next trade involving this player will be his third in his career. In his first trade, he was sent to Pittsburgh alongside Colton Sevier in exchange for this player. Laura, do you have the answer?
The answer is Patrick Hornquist.
Correct. It's Mr. Irrelevant himself. Patrick Hornquist was the last pick in his draft year. So for him to be the player that he ended up being was pretty cool. Boondoggle, User Super F, Super Rain, David Waddy, Paul P14, Thomas Logan, Michael Boivin, and Jeff Harpel. All of them got that one right. Thank you for playing. That was a lot of fun. I'm glad you all got to type the name Patrick Hornquist into a YouTube comment box. I can't remember the last time I ever got to do that. All right. Today's question is about the draft class. The 2007 draft class, to be specific, is regarded as one of the best in recent memory for the Montreal Canadiens. Ryan McDonough, Max Pacioretty, and PK Subban were the Habs' first three picks. How did the Habs follow up this draft? How many players selected by Montreal in the 2008 draft played NHL games? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below. Let us know how smart you are, and we'll give you a shout out on the next episode of the show. That is going to do it for us today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for tuning in and for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You only have a few more opportunities to check that one out, so please do check it out on the Locked On NHL YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your podcast. We're also available on Amazon Fire TV. On your free Fire TV channels app, click the Montreal Canadiens logo in the hockey section, and you can watch all of our episodes there as well. We are everywhere. We are posting things at Locked On Canadiens, Bluesky, Instagram, TikTok. Check us out there. We're posting all kinds of content. You don't want to miss it. Follow me at Maybe It's Ian. You can follow Laura at The Active Stick. Thanks so much for tuning in, you guys, and we will see you tomorrow.